Housing is probably your biggest cost, and that's why it's really important that you optimize your housing expenses, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do that. Make sure you stay to the last one, number 10, because no one ever talks about number 10. The very first and probably the most important thing that you can do in order to drastically reduce your housing expenses is to house hack a multi-unit. So what this basically entails is buying a multi-unit property, living in one of the units, and renting out the other ones. So this is the traditional house hack. In order to put the power of this into perspective, let's compare a single family home and a multi-unit home. So let's say you're in the market for buying a new home. You have the choice between a single family home and for our example, let's say the choice between a 4-unit property, a fourplex as they call it. If you were to buy the single family home, the median home price is about $287,000 for the median home price. So that's close to what we're going to use for the example. So let's assume that the actual price of the home that you're buying is $300,000, and that's going to make for some a little bit simpler math. So $300,000, and you're going to be putting 20% down. That means that you're going to get a mortgage for $240,000. Right now the interest rates are very low, so we're going to go ahead and assume that the interest rate is going to be 3.5%. Okay, and that's actually a little bit higher than what the average interest rates are at the time of making this video, because they're extremely low right now. So 3.5%, and then we're going to assume a 30-year mortgage. According to this handy dandy mortgage calculator that's built into Google, you're going to be paying $1,078 monthly for that mortgage on that $300,000 house. But on the flip side here, let's assume with a fourplex, let's assume that the fourplex costs twice as much. If you're a really savvy real estate investor, you might be like, oh man, you're paying double the price for a single family home as you are for a fourplex. Oh, you're not looking for the good deals. You're not finding the good deals. Okay, this is just an example. So we're going to assume $600,000 for the fourplex. You're going to be putting 20% down again, so that's going to be actually a lot more down than you're going to have to put in the other one. But it's going to be a $480,000 loan. All right, the same interest rate we'll assume, because with the multi-units from 1 to 4 units, it's going to be the same kind of loan, a regular home loan. So you're going to get the same interest rate, which is 3.5%. It's going to be over 30 years, and in this case, your mortgage is going to be $2,155. So just looking at on the surface, it looks a lot scarier, right? A lot bigger of a mortgage. But here's where it comes into play here. You have 3 other units that are actually rented out. Okay, and I looked up the median rent across the United States, and it says that it is $1,124, and I think that was for a 1-bedroom apartment. We'll just use that or something similar to that, and we'll actually be even more conservative. We'll go ahead and put the rent at only $1,000 per month. Let's assume that you're only making $1,000 per month on all 3 of those units that are attached to yours. So that's going to be $3,000 per month of rental income. Let's go ahead and estimate how much it's going to save you. So if you're getting $3,000 of rental income and you have $2,155 of a mortgage, that's enough to cover your mortgage, but you're also going to have expenses that are associated with owning property. Just as if you were to have expenses associated with a single family home, you're going to have those same expenses plus a little bit more with the fourplex. So a general rule of thumb that people like to use is 50% of your rents are going to go towards your expenses, and 50% are going to go towards whatever else. And so in this case, it would be $1,500 that can go towards your expenses and $1,500 that can go towards that mortgage. So in that case, that $1,500 we'll assume is just going straight to that mortgage, and so that's going to reduce your $2,155 of a mortgage by $1,500. And so you can see the estimated savings here are easily at least $1,500, sometimes even more, because I was using very, very conservative numbers there. It obviously also is going to depend on what kind of market you're in and where you're buying stuff, and if you got a good deal. And especially in this case, buying a multi-unit property can easily save you $2,000 per month or more, depending on where you're living. The next most dramatic way that you can reduce your housing expense is geographic arbitrage, also known by some people as moving. You can move out to somewhere that is a lot cheaper. Here's a good example here. One of the most expensive places that you can live, Manhattan, New York. It said the average rent there was $3,777. But let's say you have a job there in Manhattan, New York, but your job now is remote. You go ahead and move out of Manhattan and you move to Miami, Florida, where you have a little bit better of weather, maybe, that some would argue. So you move to Miami, Florida, and the average rent there for the equivalent size is $1,774 per month. So you can see right there, that's $2,003 $1,000 you just saved on your rent by moving from Manhattan, New York down to Miami, Florida. In this case, if you had a remote job and you were still making that money that you were making in Manhattan, New York. Plus bonus points if you move to Florida, because then you won't be paying any state income tax, I think, unless New York has a law that gets you to try to keep your income. I don't know. $2,000 saved per month just because you moved from Manhattan down to Miami. And you can do this across any kind of city, especially if you have the flexibility to work remotely, or if you have the flexibility in order to get a new job. So geographic arbitrage, it can easily save you $1,000 or more per month, in my opinion. The next most dramatic thing that you can do is rent a room in your house. So this is a smaller form of house hacking, okay? So instead of going all out and buying the big fourplex and renting them all out, or even a duplex, you are just renting a room in your house. And there are many things that you can do in order to get creative with this. You can actually get a regular roommate, or you can like rent it on like a service like Airbnb or something like that. And so this applies to both renters and homeowners, because if you're a renter, then you're getting a roommate as long as you can get it approved through the with the lease and all that. If you are a homeowner, then you can just rent it out as a vacation, or rent it out as just somebody renting the room. And so this can definitely apply to both situations. And looking up the average, by the way, for Airbnb, it says the average Airbnb person makes about $924 per month. Now that probably does include properties that aren't just rooms, but based on that, I can guesstimate that you can easily save at least $500 by renting a room or getting a roommate. Next up, another dramatic step that you can take is downsizing, because downsizing, it's a crazy how expensive houses are when they're 2,000 square feet, and then you go down to 1,500 square feet and all your utilities, all your property taxes, everything goes down because you downsized. So here's an example for you. One of the fastest growing markets, I looked up this, just randomly. It said one of the fastest growing cities is Frisco, Texas. Okay, I don't think I've ever even heard of it before I started looking it up. But in Frisco, Texas, it's actually pretty expensive there, by the way. In Frisco, Texas, a 3-bedroom, it says, was $2,350 for your average rent. But if you go down to a 2-bedroom for the rent, that goes down to $1,850 on average. That difference was $500 per month. So if you can downsize from a 3-bedroom into a 2-bedroom, maybe you had kids that moved out, maybe you only have one kid, maybe you have a spare bedroom, you don't even really need that spare bedroom. For whatever it may be, if you can downsize in the fastest growing market in the United States, apparently you can save $500 per month by just going down by 1 bedroom. And the same concept can be applied anywhere in the United States. If you're going from a bigger house into a smaller house, a bigger apartment into a smaller apartment, it's probably going to be a lot cheaper in most circumstances. And so I can easily see this saving you at least $500 per month. Next up at number 5, we have something very, very dramatic, and that is moving into an RV. So some people would consider this to be house hacking as well, and it's definitely not for everyone. It's something that I kind of want to do sometime in the future, but I haven't decided when. But anyway, moving into an RV, this can be cheaper than a house, but it can also be a lot more expensive than, like, say, renting an apartment or something like that. It can be very, very variable, and that's because you can get an RV that is, $35,000. Or you can get an RV that is $350,000. They have RVs in all kinds of sizes and ranges and, luxuries and things like that. This is very hard to actually put a discrete number into it, as in this is how much money you can save by, moving into an RV. But it can be a lot cheaper, or it can be a lot more expensive, because just by looking at it on the surface level, you would think that, oh wow, living in an RV is so much cheaper than, renting an apartment. In actuality, it can definitely not be true depending on where you're living. Now, maybe living in an RV in downtown Los Angeles might be cheaper than living in, a regular apartment, but doing the same in, the middle of the country where it's a lot cheaper, that might not be that dramatic of a savings. But still, I think that in many circumstances, if you did move into an RV from an expensive city, you can easily save at least $500 or more per month. The next one has to do with renting versus buying. Now, this is too crazy to even talk about, but really quick, if you're liking this video, make sure you like it, give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out, and I really do appreciate that. But number 6 is renting versus buying. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole tangent of renting versus buying, which one's cheaper, which one's better, because that's pretty crazy, and that's going to take about 10 hours to talk about. But in different markets, we can easily say that it is better to rent or to buy in many circumstances, especially if you're staying there for 5-10 years plus. So there are many different markets where renting makes way more sense financially, and there are many different markets where buying makes way more sense financially, especially if you have a little bit of a longer time period or a little bit of a long time horizon that you're going to be staying in that area. Usually this boils down to high cost of living areas versus low cost of living areas. Most high cost of living areas are going to be better for renting, as a general rule, and most low cost of living areas are going to be better for buying. And there's a pretty cool map on that. Hopefully I've already put it on the screen for you by now, that you can see that they have this is the areas where it's really expensive to buy, this is the areas where it's better to rent and things like that. But by doing so, I think that if you're choosing the right, either renting or buying, and you're choosing the right one financially, I think that can easily save you at least $500 per month. Next up at number 7, this is a little bit less drastic, but still very important, and that is refinancing. So if you own a home, definitely you should refinance your home if you have, an interest rate that is higher than what the current rates are. They have that inflection point where it starts paying off. So for example here, let's go back to that single family home I mentioned in number 1. So a $245,000 loan, let's say you have it at 4.5%, like you got it a few years ago, and now you can refinance at 3.5%. So 1% difference might not seem so crazy, on the surface level, 1%, whatever. But for a 30-year mortgage, the 4.5% is going to be $1,216 per month, where the 3.5% is going to be $1,078 per month. So that is a savings of $138 per month just by refinancing. Now, of course, there's going to be some extra costs that are associated with refinancing, but simply $138. So I think that refinancing your home in most circumstances can probably save you at least $100 or more per month, depending on what your interest rates were beforehand. And then we have a good one for the renters out there, and that is to negotiate your rental agreement. Many people don't think about negotiating their rental agreement, but you definitely can. Some easy ways that you can do so is by agreeing to a longer stay. So if they're normally 6 months, if you can say, hey, what if I agree to 12 months? Can I get a small discount? That might work. Or maybe you could say, what if I prepay X amount of money up front? So you're almost guaranteed, you're basically guaranteed to get your payment. Can I get a discount then? Another one could be like negotiating your utilities. Say, hey, how about you throw in the water bill into this lease agreement or something like that? I don't know. And maybe that could be a way that you negotiate. So there's many different ways that you can negotiate and get a little bit more out of your lease. And I think that this can easily save you about $50 or more per month. And then we have number 9, and this has to do with both if you own your home or if you are renting, but probably a little bit more so if you actually own your home, and that is to optimize your utilities. So this is especially true with your usage utilities. Basically, the more you use the utilities, the more you're going to pay. So this is like water, sewer, electricity, gas. The more you use, the more you're going to pay for it. So if you can optimize those by making some really small changes that are pretty easy and permanent, you can definitely save more money in the long run. So by optimizing your utilities, I think you can easily save at least $50 or more per month. And then we have number 10, the one that no one talks about. Did you know that in most circumstances, if you don't put 20% down on your home or more when you first buy it and you get a mortgage, then you're probably paying what's known as PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, which basically you're paying for insurance for the lender to basically say that you're not going to default. And if you do default, you're paying the mortgage insurance for them. Okay, I don't know if I said that right, but basically you're paying for the lender's insurance. So you do not definitely want to be paying for the lender's insurance. But even if you didn't put down the 20%, if by now you do have more than 20% equity in your house, you may be able to get rid of your PMI. So definitely do some research on that if you are paying PMI and you have more than 20% of the equity in your home paid off. This can be due to appreciation or just you paying down your payment. The average PMI, I looked it up, it's about $30 to $70 per $100,000 of mortgage on average. And so I think that just by getting rid of your PMI, you can easily save at least $50 or more per month. And while housing is probably your largest expense, like it is for most people, and it's definitely important to optimize it, it's really important to also optimize other expenses that you have, because it's very, very easy and it can save you a ton of money, and it gives you more money to invest and get rich. And in order to do that, what you need to do, if you haven't already, is you need to watch a video that I created. It's a full guide to cutting your expenses, minimizing your expenses, and achieving financial independence. So make sure that you watch that video if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.